Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. On this episode, I'm hanging out with my friend Jeff, and today we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be doing a longer form conversation, which is the video you're watching, but we're also going to be doing a shorter one all around the subject of spiritual burnout. Right. So let me know if this story sounds familiar at all for your experience. You get converted, you're on fire, you're so excited and you just want to be used by God, and then you get involved with the church. Right. Then you hit a wall because it seems like getting the church to get excited about the thing that you're excited about seems like pulling teeth. It's really tough. You get burnt out. You get discouraged. Ultimately, you end up depressed. And now you don't want to do anything with church at all.
Nope.
If you've been there, the good news is that you're not alone. I've been there. Jeff, you've been there?
I've been there, yes.
And hopefully in this conversation, we can share maybe some of the lessons that we've learned in our own experience, and hopefully something that will be valuable to you wherever on that spectrum you find yourself. You were sharing with me your story, and I shared with you my story. It's like, oh, dude, it's almost like the exact same theme theme. And so walk us through this journey. You were 15 when you met your wife. Tell us a little bit about how you came to faith and what was the immediate response that you wanted to do.
Yeah, so I met my wife when I was 15. Mm-hmm. We dated all the way through. We got married when we were 19 because we were super ready for that.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Getting married at 19, dude, that's nuts.
Yeah, it was crazy. We got married at 19. I was agnostic pretty much my entire youth. Mm-hmm. And when I should have been partying it up, my wife talked me into going to church.
Uh-oh. That's how they get you.
That's how she got me. And went to church, and it was refreshing. It was not like anything I had experienced before. And we were there for about 2 months, and the youth pastor at the time asked us to come on as leaders. I'm still agnostic at this point. I'm curious, you know. I'm not committed, but I'm curious. Then we go to this youth pastor conference where I'm learning to be a better pastor, and I get saved. Right?
Wow.
Jesus digs his hooks in, and I get saved and called to ministry all at the same point. And like you said, I'm on fire, dude. I am pumped up. Like, I don't know why everyone else isn't as excited about Jesus as I am, right? Like, I want to run out into the streets waving a Jesus flag and telling everybody how good this dude is. Uh-huh. And you know, I am fired up. And I don't know how long it usually lasts, but for me, it lasted a couple years. Like, I mean, I was fired up.
That's awesome.
And to the point where we became the youth pastors. Like, our youth pastor stepped down and moved into a different role, mm-hmm. and we became full-time youth pastors. I got hired in. I work full-time. I still currently work full-time in my church, and I have the biggest opportunity. That's the biggest downfall of it all. It's like, because I'm fired up, I have the opportunity, I have the passion, I have the resources, and all of a sudden I'm drained.
Well, even before that, like, the church oftentimes doesn't help in this process because they see the energy, they see the passion, and so what are they naturally going to do? They're like, oh, well, you want to help out with this? You want to help out with that? You want to run the youth group? You want to get involved with the AV team? Help out with social media? You want to greet people on your off days? And so pretty much like you're doing everything. And if you're not careful, you might have an unhealthy attachment or unhealthy relationship with what you do for the church and your relationship with God. Did you ever experience that?
Yeah. So I'm constantly, you know, I'm studying scripture because I got to be teaching teenagers about Jesus. But the thing is, I'm reading it with a 13-year-old in mind and not myself in mind, right? So I'm listening to how God is trying to speak to them, not necessarily how it's speaking to me. And so the only time I'm in scripture is when I have to be in scripture, which is when I'm preparing a message, right? And so I'm constantly in it, you know, and I'm constantly learning. So to the outside world, I'm very knowledgeable. Right. But it's not necessarily speaking to my soul.
So you can get to that point for a while where you're just kind of doing it just because at some point in your mind it clicks, and I'm guessing, wait, this is probably unhealthy. Was there a moment, was there an emotion that kind of brought that to the surface for you?
Yeah, I don't know that, I kind of like, not necessarily like fell away, because I think it's a bad term, not exactly what I meant. I never lost my Christianity or my faith. Like, I had the faith in Jesus, but I wasn't as fired up as I was. And I didn't know there was a word for it until a pastor named Perry Noble, which has had an interesting turn of events with him and stuff, but he wrote a book called Overwhelmed. And I don't remember how or why, but I found out about this book and I read it, and he starts talking about like burnout, and I'm like, oh man.
There was this moment where I was just realizing every time I had to show up for church, I was like feeling resentful. I was feeling like it was a burden and like it was just so taxing, and it wasn't exciting anymore. And somehow on Facebook, I saw this video of this pastor who stood up on the weekend and literally was like, guys, I can't do this anymore. I'm resigning today. Like, and it was like this long drawn out message, but there was something that he was saying in that just like gripped my heart. And I was like, that's me. He said something to the effect of like, I've been doing this for so long, like, and like it's not like I'm giving up faith. It's not like I've done something terrible. There's no controversy.
Right.
It's just I'm just tired.
Right.
It's like totally described exactly what I can't keep doing this anymore.
Right.
And I realized at that moment what I was going through was spiritual burnout.
Right.
When you realize this, how did you have the courage to tell someone? Because I think that the most natural response is, I can't be in a position of spiritual leadership and admit that I'm tired or burnt out or struggling spiritually in any way, shape, or form.
No,
That's impossible!
you just almost got to put on a mask and tough through it. So, right? And that's not the healthy way, but
Who was the first person you told?
you, my wife, yeah.
So the first person I went to was actually my boss at the time. The person who had hired me to be serving at that Bible school, and was also like the pastor and stuff like that. And I didn't have the language to describe it. I told her this story. I told her why, that I've been struggling. I shared with her that concept of the video that reached out to me, and she said, Justin, I think, she didn't use the word burnout. She said, I think you're depressed. I was like, what? Like, and I couldn't quite believe it.
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, I think you're depressed. And so that was the first bit of practical advice that someone actually gave me when it came to dealing with burnout, dealing with depression, was to find a professional counselor. What was it that you turned to? Like you talked to your wife, but what was some of the practical things that helped you get through it?
For me, it was to actually take time to seek God for myself. And like I said, I found myself studying scripture when I had to, right? Because I had to prepare a message.
Yeah.
But to actually take time and to do it for myself because I wanted to, because I needed a time with God. It got me, I would say, like on fire for God again, because I got looking for God for the right reasons. Right?
Yeah.
Not just for another message, not just for someone else, but actually for me, because I need God just as much as my teenagers need God.
Yeah. My boss, thankfully, was like a big encourager in this season. Like, it wasn't like, oh, you're depressed, like you're gonna be fired, like you don't get this fixed.
Man. Yeah.
She was the one that suggested the counselor to me. And then like kind of working through those two together, they're like, okay, here's what you need to do for the next week. You just like kind of like chill out, like only do bare minimum requirements. So only show up when you need to do something, like teach that class or whatever the case was.
Right.
And then just like, other than that, take some time to just like really be still.
Yeah.
And like I hear that passage, the be still and know that I'm God, like was really, really valuable. And so one of the practical things was like, okay, I'm putting my phone away. I'm not engaging on social media. I'm not watching TV or music or any of these different kinds of things. I'm just really taking time to just slow down and just like be present and to really just seek God in that moment. And that really made a significant difference for me.
Right. Yeah, I would say the exact same thing. And actually that passage, just be still and know that I'm God, that I'm gonna have to change it now, but that's my password on a lot of things. Just 'cause every time I type it, I remember
quick sign up to his Facebook.
Yeah. It's gonna be changed by the time you watch this. But yeah, I mean, because it's that constant reminder that to be still. And actually, I was going up to preach one day, and Jessica, back when she loved me, I'm just kidding, I love you. She used to put in notes inside my Bible before I go up and preach, and I'd find a post-it when I go to open my Bible.
That's cute.
Yeah, and one day she put, be still and know that I'm God. And she always used to tell me slow down because I get excited and just ramble through.
Go and say something like, oh no, I didn't mean that. Totally.
So she put, be still and know that I'm God. And that's just one of the things that spoke to my heart like crazy.
So for someone who's going through this right now, maybe they're in the middle of that overwhelmed, that tired feeling, that burnout feeling, that depressed, which I think it's all synonyms. It's,
I think
it's the same experience.
Same thing. Yeah.
What was the time frame? Give someone kind of an idea of how long it took you to get out. Not that results may vary.
Results may vary.
But what was that like for you?
From the point of like completely burnout to crash and burn, right? And then just to talk. I mean, I would say a year, and I'm still getting better now.
Yeah.
I'm still getting better now. I mean,
that's kind of where I'm at. Like I don't feel like I'm back to normal. And maybe this is one of the lessons. I don't know if you've been in this experience as well, and you've maybe gone through this cycle already. Maybe you can share some wisdom in the comments. I wonder if you ever go back to quote unquote normal. And I think that's okay, because here's one of the things that I've learned about it. I'm curious to know what you've learned from this experience. I've had to learn that there were habits, there were things that led to burnout. Like it didn't just happen.
Right. No.
It wasn't just completely a supernatural battle where the devil was just like kill Justin,
No, yeah,
squash
so-
his spirit. Like, no, there were things that I was doing habitually that led to it. And part of
Right.
it for me was I was always saying yes to everything.
Yeah.
And I had a super unhealthy attachment to my ministry, to my work, as far as my self-worth was.
Right.
So if I did things for God, then I was in a good standing with God. And if I
Right.
were to say no, then what does that say about me as a willing
Oh, yeah.
disciple of God? And so I think what I've learned from it is I need to be able to have boundaries.
Right.
We were talking earlier about the difference of, there's a difference when God tells you to do something and your pastor tells you to do something. And I never always looked at those two things as
Right.
separate.
Right. No, dude, you're right on. And I think leading up to my burnout, I think it was the same thing. Like I was always saying yes, but it wasn't. And I'll tell you, I get very excited about things. But yeah, so I was always saying yes, and I wasn't saying yes because I felt like I needed to. I wanted to, but at the same time, we've got to be able to discern what's good for us.
Totally.
What you can let someone else do, right? Because I'm kind of of that personality that I feel like I can always do it better, and I don't know that you can say that as a Christian, but there's certain things at the church that I feel like I have to do. But at the same time, I could train someone up to take that place for me, right? And they could fill that role. And that's something I'm learning now that has really helped. There's a lot of roles I had at the church that I've been able to train someone else to do and to delegate responsibility. And I think that's helped me a ton too, because it's let me focus on me and focus on what's important to me,
So if there's one thing I want you to get from this is that if you're experiencing burnout, if you're experiencing this sensation of being tired or depressed, I want you to know you're not alone. He's been there, I've been there. There's so many people in the community that have been there. And so you're not alone for one, but also number two, there are practical things that you can do to help you get out of that depression state, out of that burnout stage. And so if you're interested in that, you're gonna have to click or tap right over here. We're gonna do a second video and give us some of the practical tips. Go check it out and we'll see you in that video.
Yeah.